Before we get started, let's quickly review my story to understand how my journey led me here. In March 2002, I went into a diabetic coma with a blood glucose level of 1,337, more than 1,200 points above normal. Despite a set of complications that included hyperglycemia, dehydration, 2 blood clots, pneumonia, and 4 insulin shots a day, I was able to use my engineering and biochemistry background to methodically wean myself off the insulin and other drugs to lower my average glucose level and hemoglobin A1C within their normal ranges, reversing my type 2 diabetes in 3.5 months. I credit my recovery to God, the doctors and nurses, especially the nurses, my mother, Minnie Talbert McCulley, my daughter Cynthia, my engineering background, and a set of serendipitous events that helped me through my recovery. When I returned to work, several people asked me how I was able to wean myself off the insulin so quickly. When I explained to them what I was eating, they were somewhat surprised, but decided to give it a shot. They felt that they had nothing to lose. And when they returned to my office a few weeks later, they were really excited because their blood glucose level had actually started to come down. I was surprised, they were happy, but they had more questions. So I documented the answers to their questions and handed that out so that they would stop asking me so many questions. But that one-page document turned into a 5-page document, and then it turned into a 10-page document. And when my daughter Cynthia mentioned that people at her job liked the document, it expanded to 25 pages and then 30 pages. Then, surprisingly, the American Diabetes Association asked me to run a diabetic support group, and that generated even more questions as the document continued to grow to 75 pages. After I gave several presentations, I was asked whether or not I was going to write a book, and at that time I had no intention of writing a book. There were already a lot of books written about diabetes, and I didn't think another book was going to really add any additional value. But my mother, my daughter, friends from work, people in the community kept pushing in a nice way and kept asking, and finally I decided to write the book. Fortunately, I received a lot of help in writing the book. It was simply amazing the number of people that I would run into that would give me some ideas or some tips or some insight. My mother, she's very, very religious woman. And she believed that God guided these people to me. And, of course, I'm not going to argue with my mother. I tend to believe whatever she says. And if you think about it, my journey has been nothing but a journey of impossibilities. At the beginning, the doctors said it was impossible that I survive the coma with a blood sugar level of 1337. Then the doctor said it would be impossible for me to eventually get off of the insulin. And then when I did get off the insulin, they said it would be impossible for me to stay off the insulin. And then when I finally decided to write the book, the experts said it would be impossible for someone who knows very little about nutrition and disease to write a comprehensive book about diabetes. Now, my mother believes that God prepared me for this moment, and that I spent the last 30 years as an engineer learning how to perform testing, how to analyze those test results in a lab, how to write a test report, how to publish that test report. All of those skills came into play to help me beat the disease and then turn around and utilize those skills to write the book. Amazing, simply amazing. But my mother believes that it's just God's way of showing how powerful He is, that He can take someone like me who knew very little about disease and nutrition and basically turn him into a pretty good expert in his own right. My hope is that the book, or this DVD, will inspire you and others the way I was inspired by so many people I never would have met if I had not been a diabetic.